Here's a list of 13 of the dumbest cars in America in the 1940s that you won't believe actually existed. These vehicles were poorly designed, underpowered, or just out of touch with what the public wanted, leading to their place in the annals of automotive failures. Let's take a look at these missteps of the post-war automotive world. The 1941 Ford Super Deluxe was introduced as part of Ford's effort to offer a more stylish, comfortable, and well-equipped option for consumers just before the outbreak of World War II. At the time of its debut, it was considered a solid and appealing car for middle-class buyers, featuring a range of trim levels and new styling that set it apart from earlier Ford models. With options like a more refined grille, improved interiors, and better overall build quality, the Super Deluxe was a step forward for Ford. However, its timing and the drastic changes in the automotive market following the war would ultimately diminish its appeal. One of the main issues with the Ford Super Deluxe was that it entered the market just before the US became fully embroiled in World War II. By the time 2,380 production of civilian vehicles halted in 1942, the Super Deluxe was relatively new, but when production resumed in 1945, the car's design already felt outdated. While the war years had seen minimal development in car design due to the focus on military production, the post-war period was a time of rapid innovation in the automotive industry. Car manufacturers were eager to release new models that reflected modern advances in technology and design. But Ford continued producing the pre-war Super Deluxe for several more years without significant changes. The result was that by 1945, the Ford Super Deluxe looked and felt like a relic of the past. The car's design, while stylish for 1941, seemed bland and outdated compared to the more streamlined, forward-thinking models that emerged after the war. Consumers who had waited patiently through the war years for new cars were expecting something fresh and exciting, and the Super Deluxe, with its pre-war styling, simply didn't meet those expectations. While it was reliable and functional, it lacked the modern flair and innovation that post-war buyers were craving. The Super Deluxe's engine options also contributed to its dated feel. It was powered by either a flathead V8 or an inline-six engine, both of which had been in production for several years. While the V8, in particular, had earned a reputation for durability and decent power, it wasn't enough to set the Super Deluxe apart in a market that was starting to see more advanced engine designs and better performance options. Other automakers were beginning to introduce more efficient, powerful, and technologically sophisticated engines, leaving the Ford Super Deluxe feeling underpowered and behind the curve. In addition to its lackluster engine, the car's suspension and handling were also remnants of pre-war engineering. It used a simple solid axle design that, while reliable, didn't offer the smooth ride or improved handling that newer, more modern cars were beginning to feature. In a time when consumers were beginning to expect more from their driving experience, particularly in terms of comfort, the Super Deluxe's basic mechanical setup started to feel old-fashioned. The styling of the Ford Super Deluxe was another aspect that contributed to its downfall in the post-war market. While the car's design had been popular before the war, featuring a distinctive grille, ample chrome trim, and a more luxurious interior than Ford's lower-tier models, it didn't stand out in the years following 1945. Other automakers, particularly General Motors and Chrysler, were rolling out cars with sleeker, more aerodynamic designs that captured the public's imagination. The Super Deluxe, by contrast, looked boxy and dated. Its high roofline, simple body contours, and conservative overall design didn't match the forward-looking aesthetics that were becoming more desirable among post-war buyers. Additionally, by 1946, competition was fierce. The post-war era saw a surge of new models hitting the market, many of which incorporated more modern conveniences, such as better heating and ventilation systems, improved safety features, and more comfortable seating. Cars like Chevrolet's Fleetline and Chrysler's Windsor offered not only more advanced mechanical components, but also fresh, eye-catching designs that made the Ford Super Deluxe look like a relic of an earlier era. Consumers were also drawn to these newer models because they felt they were getting more value for their money, something the Super Deluxe struggled to offer, despite its relatively affordable price tag. In terms of innovation, the Ford Super Deluxe was behind the times as well. While other automakers were beginning to experiment with things like automatic transmissions, improved braking systems, and better fuel economy, the 1947 Crosley CC4 was one of the earliest American attempts at creating a true economy car, a vehicle designed to be affordable, lightweight, and fuel efficient. Coming on the heels of World War II, the CC4 was an ambitious project by Powell Crosley Jr., an industrialist known for his radio and appliance empire. The concept was simple: offer an inexpensive, no-frills car for the American public that could get great gas mileage and take up minimal space. While the idea had merit, the execution left much to be desired, especially in the post-war landscape, where consumers were gravitating toward larger, more powerful vehicles. At first glance, the Crosley CC4 was notable for its diminutive size. It was a microcar by American standards, with a wheelbase of just 80 inches and a total length of about 145 inches. This made it one of the smallest cars available in the US market, and while this was intended to make it nimble and easy to park, it also resulted in a cramped interior that could barely accommodate 4 passengers. The small size was one of the car's major downfalls in a country that was used to bigger, roomier cars. For many buyers, the thought of driving such a tiny vehicle felt like a compromise in comfort and practicality. The Crosley CC4 was powered by a 724 cubic centimeter, 26.5 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine, which, while efficient, was severely underpowered for most American drivers. This tiny engine struggled to deliver much in the way of performance, with the car's top speed hovering around 50 to 55 miles per hour. While this might have been adequate for short city trips or errands around town, the engine's limitations became glaringly apparent on longer drives or when trying to keep up with highway traffic. The CC4's acceleration was sluggish, and drivers found it difficult to pass other vehicles or climb steep hills without pushing the engine to its limits. In terms of practicality, the Crosley CC4 wasn't much better. Its small size meant that it couldn't carry much cargo or offer the kind of interior space needed for longer trips. For families, especially those with children or anyone who needed to transport goods, the car was simply too limited in terms of what it could handle. The cramped rear seats were uncomfortable, and the car's basic amenities, such as minimal insulation and rudimentary heating, made it less than ideal for colder climates or longer journeys. Build quality was another major issue with the Crosley CC4. As an inexpensive car, cost-cutting measures were evident throughout its construction. The body panels were thin, and rust became a significant problem for many owners, particularly in regions with harsh winters or salty roads. Mechanical reliability was also a concern. The engine, while innovative in its use of sheet metal for the block, was prone to overheating, and maintenance could be tricky due to its unconventional design. Many owners reported frequent breakdowns or the need for constant tinkering to keep the car running smoothly. The Crosley CC4 was designed at a time when America was still emerging from the austerity of the war years, and there was an expectation that consumers would prioritize economy and practicality over luxury and performance. However, as the post-war economy boomed, American taste shifted. The post-war consumer wanted cars that reflected their newfound prosperity, and the market moved toward larger, more powerful vehicles that offered comfort, style, and advanced features. In this climate, the Crosley CC4 felt like an artifact of an earlier, more constrained era. It was too utilitarian, too small, and too underpowered to compete with the bigger, flashier cars coming from Detroit. One of the Crosley CC4's biggest challenges was the competition it faced from other automakers. As major brands like Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler began to ramp up production of their post-war models, the market became saturated with bigger, more powerful cars that offered better performance, more interior space, and improved technology. Even other compact cars of the era, such as the Nash Rambler, managed to strike a better balance between size and practicality. Against this backdrop, the Crosley CC4 seemed like a relic, unable to offer the same level of comfort or capability that buyers were coming to expect. The Crosley's inability to keep pace with the market was reflected in its sales numbers. While the car did have a niche following, especially among budget-conscious buyers and those looking for a second, city-friendly vehicle, it never achieved widespread success. The car's limitations in terms of size, performance, and reliability simply outweighed its benefits. And as the 1950s approached, larger, more powerful cars became the dominant force in the American automotive market. In the end, the 1947 Crosley CC4 is remembered as an innovative, if flawed, attempt to bring affordable small cars to America. The 1940 Lal Series 50 represented the final chapter in the story of Lal, a brand that was introduced in 1927 as a more affordable and stylish alternative to Cadillac. Positioned as a junior luxury vehicle, Lal was intended to bridge the gap between Cadillac and Buick, offering a premium experience without the full Cadillac price tag. While Lal had moments of brilliance in the 1930s, its final iteration, the Series 50, failed to captivate buyers, leading to the brand's eventual discontinuation. By 1940, the automotive landscape had changed significantly, and Lal struggled to maintain its identity. Once considered a sleek, modern alternative to Cadillac's more traditional offerings, the Lal Series 50 was now viewed as an unnecessary middle ground product. Neither luxurious enough to justify its higher price, nor innovative enough to distinguish itself from other General Motors models. It was essentially a forgotten sibling of Cadillac, lost in the shadows of more dynamic vehicles that captured the public's attention. The design of the 1940 Lal Series 50 was a major factor in its downfall. At a glance, it appeared elegant and stately, but compared to other luxury cars of the era, it lacked the flair and boldness that buyers expected. While previous Lal models had set trends with their stylish, European-inspired designs, the Series 50 felt more like a rehashed version of Cadillac's existing models. It didn't stand out visually, which was crucial for a brand that had once been known for its innovative styling. Mechanically, the Lal Series 50 was competent, sharing much of its engineering with Cadillac, including the powerful V8 engine. However, this wasn't enough to differentiate it from Cadillac's mainline models, especially since buyers could often opt for a Cadillac at a slightly higher price. For those willing to spend a little more, the Cadillac nameplate carried far more prestige, making the Lal Series 50 a less appealing option for status-conscious consumers. The Lal didn't feel special enough to justify its place in the market, particularly when it was so close in price and features to the Cadillacs sitting next to it in showrooms. World War II was on the horizon, and the economic pressures of the late 1930s and early 1940s also played a role in the Lal's demise. Buyers in this era were becoming more pragmatic, looking for vehicles that offered clear value and a strong sense of identity. The Lal, unfortunately, had neither. Its position as Cadillac's less expensive alternative made it difficult to carve out a distinct audience, and sales reflected this confusion. In a time when consumers were looking for either affordable, reliable cars or premium, full-featured luxury vehicles, the Lal Series 50 was stuck in an awkward middle ground. Cadillac's decision to phase out the Lal brand in 1940 wasn't a shock. For years, Lal had struggled to justify its existence, and by the end of the decade, General Motors no longer saw the need for a brand that didn't add anything substantial to its lineup. The Lal Series 50, while not a bad car by any means, simply didn't offer the kind of innovative features or standout design that could save the brand. It was a capable but uninspired vehicle, overshadowed by more prestigious Cadillac models and more affordable Buicks. Lal's discontinuation after the 1940 model year marked the end of a brand that had once held great promise. Initially celebrated for its fresh designs and approachable luxury, Lal had become a forgotten part of Cadillac's history, a nameplate that never quite managed to step out of Cadillac's shadow. The Series 50, as the final Lal model, became a symbol of the brand's inability to stay relevant in a rapidly evolving market. Today, the 1940 Lal Series 50 is remembered as a footnote in the history of American luxury cars. A car that, while well-built and respectable, didn't have enough of a unique identity to survive. Its elegant but conservative design, combined with its lack of distinctive luxury features, left it struggling to find its place in a market that was increasingly drawn to more innovative and exciting vehicles. In the end, Lal's fate was sealed not by any catastrophic failure, but by a gradual loss of relevance. It became the forgotten sibling of Cadillac, fading quietly into history as more dynamic brands took the spotlight. The 1948 Tucker 48, also known as the Tucker Torpedo, stands as one of the most intriguing what-if stories in automotive history. Developed by entrepreneur Preston Tucker, this car was revolutionary in its design, technology, and vision, offering features that were decades ahead of its time. However, its downfall came not from the car's engineering itself, but from the significant challenges Tucker faced in the cutthroat automotive industry, combined with financial troubles and legal obstacles. The Tucker 48 became a symbol of innovation, thwarted by forces beyond its creator's control. At a time when most American cars still clung to pre-war designs and conservative engineering, the Tucker 48 was an audacious leap into the future. Preston Tucker envisioned a car that prioritized both performance and safety, concepts that were often overlooked in the 1940s. The car boasted a rear-mounted, air-cooled engine, which was a departure from the front-engine, rear-wheel drive layouts of most cars of the era. This design aimed to improve the vehicle's handling and balance, giving it a more advanced driving experience compared to its contemporaries. One of the standout features of the Tucker 48 was its focus on safety, something that was almost unheard of in an industry primarily concerned with luxury and styling. The car featured a crash compartment for the front seat passenger, padded dashboards, and a pop-out windshield designed to prevent injury in case of a collision. The central headlight, known as the Cyclops eye, turned with the steering wheel, offering better visibility around corners. These were groundbreaking features that set the Tucker apart from anything else on the road at the time. Despite its futuristic design and advanced technology, the Tucker 48 suffered from several production and engineering issues. Preston Tucker's ambitions were incredibly high, and he attempted to introduce too many radical innovations all at once. While the rear-mounted engine and safety features were forward-thinking, they were also expensive to produce and complex to implement on a large scale. The car was also plagued by some mechanical problems during testing, which Tucker's small, underfunded company struggled to correct quickly. Though not insurmountable, these issues contributed to growing doubts about the viability of mass-producing the vehicle. Beyond engineering challenges, Tucker faced significant financial struggles. Starting a new car company from scratch in post-World War II America was a daunting task, particularly when competing against the established giants of the industry like General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. Tucker had to rely on unconventional methods to raise capital, including selling dealership franchises and stock options before the cars were fully developed. This aggressive approach drew the attention of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), which launched an investigation into Tucker's business practices. The ensuing legal battle drained the company's resources, casting a cloud of uncertainty over the project. The timing of the Tucker 48's release also played a crucial role in its downfall. America was entering an era of economic prosperity after World War II, but car buyers were still wary of unproven manufacturers. Consumers sought reliability and the assurance of established brands, making it difficult for an upstart like Tucker to break into the market, especially with a car that seemed so radically different from the norm. Additionally, the automobile industry's entrenched players were not eager to see a new competitor with such innovative ideas. Tucker's vision for a safer, more advanced car was seen as a threat to the status quo, and there are persistent rumors that established automakers worked behind the scenes to sabotage his efforts, though this remains speculative. In the end, only 51 Tucker 48s were ever produced before the company collapsed in 1949, following the SEC investigation and mounting financial troubles. The car itself never had a chance to reach its full potential. The few Tucker 48s that were completed became collector's items, revered for their engineering brilliance and their place in automotive lore. Despite its commercial failure, the Tucker 48 left an indelible mark on the industry, serving as a reminder of what can happen when innovation clashes with the harsh realities of the marketplace. Today, the Tucker 48 is remembered as both a triumph of imagination and a cautionary tale of what happens when ambition outpaces the resources needed to bring it to life. While its advanced features were eventually adopted by the industry decades later, such as safety innovations and improved aerodynamics, Tucker was ahead of his time, trying to implement ideas that were simply too much for 1940s manufacturing capabilities and consumer expectations. The car's failure was not due to its design or concept. The 1942 Chrysler Royal was a well-regarded car before World War II, praised for its sturdy construction, reliable performance, and conservative design. However, as the world moved beyond the war, so did the expectations of consumers, and the Royal found itself stuck in a bygone era. When production resumed after the war, the automotive landscape had shifted significantly. Automakers were eager to bring new modern designs to a public hungry for change, but the Chrysler Royal remained largely unchanged from its pre-war version, leaving it to fade into obscurity during the post-war boom. Before the war, the Chrysler Royal had been a respectable, middle-of-the-road offering that appealed to a broad segment of the market. Its conservative styling, reliable straight-six engine, and spacious interior made it a solid choice for families and professionals alike. The car was dependable and durable, with a reputation for quality that was in line with Chrysler's brand identity at the time. However, by the time production was halted due to wartime efforts, the Royal had already begun to feel somewhat dated compared to some of the more daring designs from competitors. The problem came after the war, when automakers like Ford, General Motors, and others seized the opportunity to reinvent their lineups with fresh, modern designs and updated technology. These new models featured sleeker bodies, more powerful engines, and advanced features that made them exciting options for the American public. Eager for something new after years of rationing and scarcity. In contrast, the Chrysler Royal was essentially the same car that had been produced before the war, with minimal updates to its design or performance. The Royal's pre-war aesthetics, which had once been considered classic and understated, now seemed dull and outdated in comparison to the flashier, more streamlined models hitting the market. The boxy, upright design of the Royal was a throwback to the late 1930s and early 1940s, a time when cars were designed more for function than for form. The Royal's large, rounded fenders, flat grille, and simple lines were functional, but lacked the modern flair that car buyers in the late 1940s were craving. It was a car that still bore the conservative DNA of its era, while the rest of the industry was looking toward the future. Technologically, the Chrysler Royal also lagged behind. While its six-cylinder engine was dependable, it lacked the power and refinement of the newer V8 engines that were starting to appear in competitors' cars. Chrysler had long been known for its innovation in engine design, but the Royal was stuck with technology that had not evolved since before the war. This made it less appealing to drivers who were looking for cars that offered more performance, better fuel economy, and a smoother ride. Moreover, the lack of significant upgrades or new features made the Royal feel out of place in a rapidly changing market. Consumers in the post-war period were being enticed with cars that had automatic transmissions, improved suspension systems, and more luxurious interiors. The Royal, in contrast, was still offering a manual transmission and the same basic amenities that had been present before the war. As a result, it began to be seen as a relic of a bygone era, a car that simply couldn't keep up with the times. Another factor contributing to the Chrysler Royal's decline was the overall economic environment of the late 1940s. As the U.S. economy surged, people were willing to spend more on cars that felt like a step into the future. They wanted vehicles that reflected the optimism and progress of the post-war era. The Royal, despite its affordability, couldn't generate much excitement in a market brimming with innovative alternatives. Chrysler, recognizing the need to modernize its lineup, eventually moved on from the Royal and focused on new models that better reflected the changing tastes of American consumers. However, by the time this shift occurred, the Royal had already cemented its place as a car that was left behind by the sweeping changes of the post-war period. In hindsight, the Chrysler Royal's fall from grace was largely due to its inability to adapt to a rapidly evolving market. What had once been a solid, respectable car for its time became outdated almost overnight. The Royal simply couldn't compete with the wave of fresh designs and technological advancements that defined the post-war automotive boom. Its legacy, much like other pre-war holdovers, serves as a reminder of how quickly consumer preferences can change and how critical it is for automakers to stay ahead of the curve. Though the Royal had enjoyed success in the pre-war years, it failed to evolve, becoming a post-war flop that couldn't live up to the demands of a new era. Its decline was inevitable in the face of modern competition. The 1940 Studebaker Champion was introduced as an affordable option in Studebaker's lineup, aimed at the average American driver seeking a reliable, economical car. It was meant to bring Studebaker into a new era of automotive production, offering something smaller and less expensive than many of the larger, more powerful cars on the market. However, despite its noble intentions, the Champion struggled to make a lasting impression. Its biggest shortcomings were its lack of power and its unremarkable, overly conservative design, which failed to inspire excitement among buyers in an increasingly competitive market. When it was first introduced, the Champion's primary selling point was its affordability. Priced lower than many competitors, it was meant to be a practical, no-frills car that appealed to the budget-conscious consumer. In the midst of a global depression, this strategy made sense, but the focus on economy came at a cost, both literally and figuratively. In keeping the price low, Studebaker sacrificed power, performance, and design flair. The Champion's six-cylinder engine was underpowered, delivering just enough horsepower to get the car moving, but not enough to make driving it enjoyable. Compared to rivals like Ford and Chevrolet, whose cars offered more powerful engines and better acceleration, the Champion felt sluggish and uninspiring. The Champion's lack of power was particularly noticeable on highways or steep inclines, where its small engine struggled to keep up with traffic. While Studebaker marketed the car's fuel efficiency and low operating costs, these virtues were offset by the underwhelming driving experience. Consumers who wanted a bit more thrill behind the wheel or needed a car that could handle varied terrain with ease often looked elsewhere. Another major issue for the 1940 Studebaker Champion was its styling. While Studebaker had been known for its bold and distinctive designs in earlier decades, the Champion's appearance was relatively plain and conservative. In an era when cars were beginning to take on more streamlined, futuristic shapes, the Champion's boxy, unadorned design did little to set it apart from the crowd. Its rounded fenders, flat grille, and upright stance were reminiscent of pre-war design language, lacking the flair and modern touches that other manufacturers were beginning to incorporate. For many buyers, the Champion didn't offer enough style or personality to make it worth considering, even at its lower price point. The American public in the late 1930s and early 1940s was starting to embrace cars that made a statement, both in terms of performance and aesthetics. Cars were no longer just practical machines. They were symbols of status, success, and forward-thinking design. The Studebaker Champion, with its modest proportions and lackluster appearance, simply didn't resonate with this changing mindset. In addition to its design and performance issues, the Champion also had to contend with a rapidly evolving automotive landscape. As the world inched closer to World War II, car manufacturers were introducing new technologies and innovations at a rapid pace. Many of the Champion's competitors were offering more modern features like independent front suspension, hydraulic brakes, and improved engine options. While the Champion was reliable, it didn't offer the cutting-edge advancements that buyers were beginning to expect from their cars. Despite these drawbacks, the Studebaker Champion did have some strengths. It was relatively lightweight, which helped with fuel economy, and its smaller size made it easier to maneuver in tight spaces compared to larger cars. It was also a well-built vehicle, with a reputation for durability and reliability. For buyers who prioritize practicality and low operating costs above all else, the Champion was an adequate choice. But for those looking for more excitement, power, or style in their cars, the Champion didn't deliver. Ultimately, the 1940 Studebaker Champion represents a missed opportunity for the brand. While it was a well-intentioned attempt to capture the budget-conscious segment of the market, it didn't offer enough in terms of performance or design to stand out. As a result, it was overshadowed by more dynamic offerings from Ford, Chevrolet, and other manufacturers. In the rapidly changing automotive world of the 1940s, the Champion's conservative approach to design and engineering left it behind. and it struggled to keep pace with the competition. Though it enjoyed moderate sales success, the Champion never truly achieved the level of popularity that Studebaker had hoped for. It remains a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers trying to balance affordability with performance and innovation. A balance that, unfortunately for the Champion, was never quite struck. The 1946 Ford station wagon is often remembered as a symbol of post-war Americana, with its distinctive wood paneling that contributed to the era's woody car craze. While the design was undeniably stylish and nostalgic, evoking images of beach outings and family road trips, the vehicle had a number of practical drawbacks that limited its appeal. The wood-paneled exterior, while visually unique, added unnecessary weight to the car and required significant upkeep, making it an impractical choice for many buyers. In a period when Americans were looking for practical, durable vehicles in the years after World War II, the Ford station wagon's quirks turned off a number of potential customers. One of the most striking features of the 1946 Ford station wagon was, of course, its wooden paneling. This design choice was part of a long-standing tradition of using wood in the construction of early station wagons. Wood was readily available during the pre-war era, and it was used as a cost-effective material for these types of vehicles. The Ford station wagon was initially built for utilitarian purposes, mostly to transport goods or people over short distances. But by the mid-1940s, station wagons began to take on a more fashionable role, becoming associated with leisure and middle-class suburban life. However, this aesthetic charm came at a price. The wood paneling, while beautiful, required considerable maintenance. Unlike steel, which could be painted and forgotten about, the wood needed to be regularly treated, sanded, and varnished to prevent rot, warping, or damage from the elements. For owners who didn't have the time or inclination to maintain the wood, this became a serious drawback. The upkeep involved with owning a wood-paneled car made it far less convenient compared to all-metal vehicles, which were becoming more common in the automotive market. As a result, many consumers who were drawn to the wagon's initial charm grew frustrated with the ongoing maintenance. The second major issue with the 1946 Ford station wagon was its weight. The wooden panels added substantial heft to the car, making it much heavier than comparable all-steel models. This extra weight negatively impacted the vehicle's performance, particularly its acceleration and fuel efficiency. Powered by a V8 engine, the station wagon was far from being underpowered for its time, but the weight of the wood bogged it down, resulting in sluggish acceleration and a less-than-ideal driving experience. Drivers looking for a more responsive car found the station wagon to be somewhat of a chore to drive, particularly on longer trips or in hilly terrain where the added weight made a noticeable difference. Fuel economy was another concern, especially as post-war America was beginning to transition toward more efficient and streamlined cars. While gas was relatively cheap in the late 1940s, there was still a growing awareness of the importance of fuel economy, especially for families on a budget. The heavy Ford station wagon, with its lackluster efficiency, simply couldn't compete with lighter, more aerodynamic vehicles that were beginning to enter the market. For families who needed a car that could balance space with fuel savings, the Ford's bulk became a notable downside. In addition to these performance and maintenance issues, the Ford station wagon also faced criticism for its handling. The car's weight made it harder to maneuver, and its suspension wasn't designed to deal with the extra load of the wooden panels. This resulted in a rougher ride, especially on uneven roads. For a vehicle that was marketed as both a family and leisure car, this rough ride was a serious flaw. Drivers who were hoping for a smooth, comfortable experience often found themselves dealing with a bumpy and unpredictable ride, which made long trips far less enjoyable. The combination of these factors, weight issues, poor fuel efficiency, and the burdensome maintenance of the wooden paneling, contributed to the declining popularity of the Ford station wagon by the late 1940s. Though the wood-paneled, woody aesthetic would later become a cherished part of classic car culture, at the time, many buyers were turned off by the practical downsides. The station wagon's charming exterior couldn't fully mask the inefficiencies and inconveniences that came with it, and many consumers opted for more practical, steel-bodied vehicles that offered better performance, lower upkeep, and greater efficiency. Despite these drawbacks, the 1946 Ford station wagon retains a certain nostalgic appeal today. For collectors and enthusiasts, it represents a unique moment in automotive history when style and tradition sometimes took precedence over practicality. Its connection to the post-war boom in American car culture, as well as its iconic look, has helped it remain a symbol of a bygone era. The 1948 Kaiser Fraser Deluxe is a perfect example of how good engineering alone isn't always enough to guarantee success in the automotive world. While the car was well built and offered reliable performance, its bland design and lackluster marketing campaign meant it failed to capture the attention of post-war American buyers, who were drawn to more stylish and heavily promoted competitors. As a result, despite its strong engineering foundation, the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe quickly faded into obscurity, overshadowed by cars that better aligned with the tastes and desires of the era. The Kaiser Fraser Corporation, formed in 1945 by Henry J. Kaiser, an industrialist, and Joseph W. Fraser, an experienced automotive executive, was one of the few new automakers to emerge in 1945, the aftermath of World War II. With wartime production restrictions lifted, the demand for new cars in America was higher than ever, and many automakers sought to capitalize on the booming market. The Kaiser Fraser Deluxe was part of this new wave of vehicles, aimed at filling the demand for mid-priced, well-appointed family cars. However, Kaiser Fraser faced significant challenges, not the least of which was trying to carve out a space in a market dominated by established brands like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. One of the primary issues with the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe was its unremarkable styling. In a time when consumers were starting to gravitate towards sleeker, more modern designs, the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe was conservative to a fault. Its lines were simple, and its overall appearance lacked the visual punch that many buyers expected from a new car. While some might have appreciated the understated design, most people found it too plain, especially when compared to the more flamboyant models being offered by competitors. Brands like Cadillac and Buick were coming out with bold, chrome-laden designs that embodied the optimism and prosperity of the late 1940s. And the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe, with its restrained and boxy look, simply couldn't compete. This lack of visual appeal was compounded by poor marketing. Kaiser Fraser, despite having some impressive talent behind it, struggled to create a strong brand identity. While Ford, GM, and Chrysler had decades of experience marketing their vehicles, Kaiser Fraser was a newcomer, and it lacked the infrastructure and expertise to make a significant impact. The company's advertising campaigns failed to differentiate the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe from the competition, and they didn't do enough to highlight the car's strengths, such as its solid build quality and roomy interior. Instead, the car was marketed in a rather generic way, failing to create the kind of buzz necessary to draw attention in such a competitive market. In addition to its bland looks and lackluster marketing, the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe also faced stiff competition from other, more established automakers that had the resources to dominate the post-war market. Companies like Ford and Chevrolet had well-oiled production machines in place and a loyal customer base that had been waiting years to buy new cars. As a result, Kaiser Fraser found it difficult to compete on price or scale. The Deluxe was priced similarly to more established models from bigger brands, which offered more style and prestige for roughly the same cost. For many buyers, the decision was simple. They could get a more attractive, better-known car from a company they trusted for the same money. Although the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe had its shortcomings, it wasn't a bad car. In fact, it was well engineered for its time, with a durable body and a reliable engine. The car's straight-six engine provided decent power for everyday driving, and its suspension system was praised for offering a comfortable ride. The Deluxe was also roomy and practical, making it a solid option for families looking for a dependable car to get them through the post-war years. However, none of these practical advantages were enough to overcome the car's biggest obstacle, its lack of excitement. In an era when many Americans were looking for something new and exciting after the drudgery of wartime rationing and sacrifice, the Kaiser Fraser Deluxe simply didn't offer enough to capture their imagination. The car's sales numbers reflected this. While the Kaiser Fraser Corporation managed to sell a decent number of vehicles in the immediate post-war years, the Deluxe struggled to keep up with the competition. As the decade wore on, it became clear that the company wasn't going to be able to maintain its early momentum. By the early 1950s, Kaiser Fraser was losing market share rapidly, and the Deluxe was phased out as the company tried to pivot towards other models. However, the brand's financial troubles persisted, and by 1955, the Kaiser Fraser Corporation was forced to stop producing cars entirely. The 1940 Graham Hollywood is often remembered as a car that aspired to be something it ultimately couldn't achieve, a stylish and modern luxury vehicle. Designed to compete in a growing market of elegant automobiles, the Hollywood aimed for an image of sophistication and innovation. However, its outdated and awkward styling ultimately alienated potential buyers, leaving it struggling to make an impact in an increasingly competitive landscape. The Graham Hollywood was developed by the Graham Page Motors Corporation, which was known for producing a variety of automobiles in the early 20th century. The Hollywood was introduced as a streamlined coupe, showcasing the company's ambition to create a vehicle that could rival the luxury offerings from established automakers like Cadillac and Lincoln. The design was intended to capture the essence of modernity, featuring long lines and a distinctive roofline that was meant to evoke a sense of elegance. However, what the designers considered avant-garde ended up looking clunky and awkward to many observers. One of the primary design flaws of the Graham Hollywood was its bulkiness. The car featured a significant amount of sheet metal, and its proportions often came off as heavy-handed rather than sleek. While other manufacturers were embracing the concept of streamlining, with smooth contours and aerodynamic shapes, the Hollywood's design felt more like a throwback to earlier automotive styles. The oversized grille and prominent fenders contributed to an overall impression of massiveness that simply didn't align with the tastes of car buyers in the late 1930s and early 1940s, who were increasingly drawn to designs that conveyed a sense of speed and agility. Moreover, the Graham Hollywood lacked several modern features that had become standard in luxury cars by that time. Many competing models offered advanced engineering and luxury elements that catered to the desires of affluent customers. In contrast, the Hollywood fell short in terms of both performance and comfort. Its engineering was not on par with more successful rivals, and the car struggled to deliver the kind of driving experience that buyers expected from a luxury coupe. While the Hollywood was equipped with a decent engine, typically a 6-cylinder power plant, it didn't offer the performance or refinement that could compete with the more powerful V8 engines offered by other manufacturers. As a result, the car lacked the excitement and prestige that many consumers sought when investing in a luxury vehicle. The market conditions in which the Graham Hollywood was launched also played a significant role in its eventual lack of success. As the United States prepared for World War II, consumers began to prioritize practicality and economy over luxury and style. With uncertainty looming, many buyers were reluctant to invest in a car that seemed out of touch with the realities of the time. As automakers pivoted to produce more practical vehicles to meet the needs of a rapidly changing market, the Hollywood's luxury aspirations appeared increasingly misplaced. Additionally, the marketing efforts behind the Graham Hollywood were insufficient to counter its design and performance issues. The brand struggled to create a compelling narrative around the car, which left it overshadowed by more successful competitors. Without a strong marketing push, the Hollywood failed to attract the attention it needed to gain traction in a crowded marketplace. Potential customers were more inclined to gravitate toward brands that presented a clear and appealing vision of their vehicles, which left the Graham Hollywood in a challenging position. In summary, the 1940 Graham Hollywood serves as a reminder of how crucial design and market positioning are in the automotive industry. While it aspired to present itself as a futuristic luxury car, its outdated and awkward styling ultimately failed to resonate with buyers. As the automotive landscape shifted towards sleeker and more modern designs, the Hollywood was left struggling to find its place. Despite its engineering potential and ambitions, the Graham Hollywood remains a testament to the challenges faced by manufacturers in a rapidly evolving industry, and it stands as a symbol of a moment when aspiration did not translate into success. The 1947 Doto Custom was introduced as a mid-range luxury car with aspirations of appealing to consumers who sought comfort and style without the high price tag of more upscale brands. However, it faced significant challenges that ultimately hindered its success in a competitive automotive landscape. The DeSoto Custom struggles can be traced back to several key factors, including stiff competition, branding issues, and styling choices that failed to resonate with potential buyers. Upon its release, the DeSoto Custom entered a crowded market dominated by established competitors like Chevrolet, Ford, and even Chrysler's own premium offerings. Consumers had numerous options when it came to mid-range luxury cars, and many of these alternatives had already built strong reputations for quality, performance, and style. The DeSoto Custom had to contend not only with rival brands, but also with other Chrysler models that often overshadowed it in terms of marketing and consumer perception. The result was a car that struggled to carve out a distinct identity amid a sea of choices, leaving potential buyers uncertain about its value proposition. One of the most significant hurdles for the DeSoto Custom was its branding and positioning within the Chrysler lineup. DeSoto was initially positioned as a more affordable luxury brand, but by the late 1940s, its image had become muddled. Competing with Chrysler's more prestigious models, like the Imperial, and its budget-friendly offerings like Plymouth, the DeSoto Custom found itself trapped in a no-man's land where it couldn't effectively compete with either segment. This identity crisis led to a lack of clarity regarding its target market, making it difficult for the brand to build a loyal customer base. The DeSoto Custom styling also played a role in its challenges. While the car featured some appealing design elements typical of the late 1940s, such as chrome accents and a streamlined shape, it also sported peculiar styling choices that failed to resonate with consumers. Many buyers found the overall appearance of the DeSoto Custom to be somewhat awkward and uninspired, lacking the elegance and flair that were becoming increasingly popular in the post-war automotive market. In a time when sleek lines and eye-catching designs were in high demand, the DeSoto Custom's aesthetic choices seemed to fall short, failing to capture the imagination of potential buyers. Furthermore, the DeSoto Custom was plagued by issues related to performance and build quality. While the car was equipped with a capable engine, its performance did not stand out in a segment filled with competitors, offering more powerful and refined driving experiences. Consumers began to prioritize performance and reliability as they sought vehicles that could provide a satisfying driving experience. And the DeSoto Custom struggled to deliver on these expectations. Additionally, concerns regarding build quality further compounded its issues as reports of reliability problems and inconsistent craftsmanship circulated among consumers. This reputation undermined the DeSoto Custom's credibility in a market where quality was paramount. The marketing efforts behind the DeSoto Custom also contributed to its struggles. The brand failed to create a compelling narrative or brand identity that could effectively differentiate the Custom from its competitors. Without a strong marketing push, potential buyers remain largely unaware of the vehicle's merits, leading to weak sales and minimal brand loyalty. The DeSoto Custom lacked the advertising support necessary to create excitement and interest in the model, which further compounded its challenges in attracting a customer base. In conclusion, the 1947 DeSoto Custom exemplifies the difficulties that can arise when a vehicle fails to establish a clear identity in a competitive automotive market. Stiff competition, poor branding, and a lack of resonant styling choices combined to overshadow the DeSoto Custom, preventing it from achieving the success its creators had envisioned. Despite its intentions to offer a mid-range luxury experience, the car struggled to find its place, ultimately fading into obscurity as consumers turned their attention to more compelling alternatives. The DeSoto Custom serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of strong branding, clear positioning, and resonant design in the automotive industry, highlighting how critical these factors are to a vehicle's success in an ever-evolving marketplace. The 1941 Pontiac Torpedo was introduced during a pivotal time in the automotive industry. Positioned as a mid-range, stylish vehicle, it was designed to appeal to a broad spectrum of buyers who wanted the prestige of an attractive car without paying for the higher-end models of the era. While the Torpedo looked the part with its streamlined and modern design, underneath the surface it struggled with significant performance drawbacks. These shortcomings, combined with shifting consumer preferences and post-war advancements in automotive technology, cemented its legacy as a heavy, underpowered car that failed to live up to its visual promise. In terms of design, the 1941 Pontiac Torpedo was striking. Pontiac embraced the styling trends of the early 1940s, focusing on sleek, flowing lines that made the car appear more aerodynamic than previous models. This was an era when the automotive industry was transitioning from the boxy, upright designs of the 1930s to more streamlined shapes that suggested speed and modernity. The Torpedo's design was considered futuristic at the time, with a long hood, an expansive grille, and distinct fender lines that gave the car a certain elegance on the road. Its look was appealing to buyers who wanted something more fashionable than the average sedan. The Torpedo also came with various trim options and configurations, which allowed buyers to customize their vehicle to an extent, making it more versatile in terms of consumer appeal. Inside, it offered a comfortable and spacious cabin with a relatively upscale interior for the price range. Pontiac aimed to position the Torpedo as an affordable luxury vehicle, giving buyers a taste of the high-end car experience without the steep cost associated with premium brands like Cadillac or Lincoln. In this sense, the Torpedo succeeded, at least on paper. It offered enough amenities to satisfy those looking for a more refined car without venturing into true luxury territory. However, the promising exterior and interior design were only part of the equation. Underneath the sleek shell, the Pontiac Torpedo faced significant challenges. One of the car's biggest problems was its weight. At a time when many automakers were beginning to experiment with lighter materials and more efficient designs, the Torpedo remained a heavy vehicle. This was largely due to its solid construction, which prioritized safety and durability. While the sturdy build gave it a sense of security and strength, it also made the car sluggish on the road. Weighing in at over 3,000 pounds, the Torpedo was significantly heavier than many of its competitors. This weight issue was compounded by the car's underpowered engine options. The base engine in the 1941 Torpedo was a flathead inline-six, producing just over 90 horsepower, which was insufficient to give the car any real sense of performance. Even the optional straight-eight engine, which produced around 100 horsepower, struggled to provide enough power to move the heavy vehicle with agility. The result was a sluggish driving experience that left many drivers disappointed, especially when compared to other vehicles that offered better power-to-weight ratios. The Torpedo could manage highway speeds, but acceleration was lethargic, and its lack of responsiveness made it less enjoyable to drive than its competitors. In particular, drivers found the Torpedo's performance in city environments and on hilly terrain to be underwhelming. The car was slow to accelerate from a stop, and its weight made climbing hills a challenge. The engine strained under the burden, and the Torpedo's performance became sluggish, especially when fully loaded with passengers or cargo. Handling was another issue, as the car's size and weight made it difficult to maneuver, especially in tight spaces or crowded urban areas. The suspension system, though designed for comfort, struggled to cope with the vehicle's bulk, leading to a somewhat floaty ride that lacked precision and control. The timing of the Torpedo's release also played a role in its eventual decline. The car was introduced just before the U.S. entered World War II, and like many other vehicles of the era, production halted during the war as factories were retooled to support the war effort. When production resumed in 1945, the automotive landscape had changed dramatically. Consumers who had gone years without access to new cars were eager for fresh, modern designs. Unfortunately for Pontiac, the Torpedo's pre-war design was already beginning to feel outdated by the time the post-war boom arrived. As other automakers rushed to introduce newer, more innovative models, the Torpedo felt like a relic of a bygone era. The post-war period saw significant advancements in automotive technology and design. Manufacturers were now focusing on lighter, more efficient cars that offered improved performance and fuel economy. The Torpedo, with its heavy frame and sluggish performance, the 1940 Lincoln Zephyr, was intended to be a groundbreaking vehicle that would help Lincoln establish itself in the luxury car market. Its sleek, aerodynamic design and high-end features were meant to appeal to buyers looking for a stylish, upscale vehicle. At a time when the automotive world was moving away from the boxy, upright designs of the 1930s, the Zephyr's smooth, streamlined look was ahead of its time, earning it praise for its visual appeal. However, despite its aesthetic success, the Zephyr struggled in other key areas, particularly in reliability and overall value, which kept it from achieving the success Lincoln had hoped for. The Zephyr's design was its most celebrated feature. Introduced in 1936 and continuing into 1940, it was one of the first cars to embrace the concept of streamlining, a design philosophy that prioritized aerodynamics and sleek lines. The car's long, sloping hood, curved fenders, and teardrop-shaped body set it apart from many of the more angular vehicles on the road. This made the Zephyr stand out in a market that was still largely dominated by more traditional designs. Its Art Deco-inspired styling was not only a reflection of the time's aesthetic trends, but also a bold statement that Lincoln was looking to the future. Inside, the Lincoln Zephyr continued its luxurious presentation with high-quality materials and a well-appointed cabin. The car was equipped with plush seats, a dashboard with an elegant layout, and various chrome accents that gave it a sophisticated, high-class feel. It was clearly designed to attract buyers who were seeking a more refined driving experience, offering them a taste of luxury without reaching the prices of top-tier brands like Cadillac or Packard. The Zephyr was meant to bridge the gap between mainstream vehicles and the ultra-luxury segment, giving Lincoln a foothold in the lucrative market of premium cars. However, despite its elegant design and upscale interior, the Zephyr was plagued by mechanical issues that undermined its appeal. One of the main problems was its engine. The 1940 Zephyr was powered by a V12 engine, which was supposed to give the car both power and prestige. Unfortunately, this engine was known for being temperamental and unreliable. It suffered from overheating issues, which could cause serious damage if not addressed quickly. The complexity of the V12 engine also made it difficult and expensive to repair, further discouraging potential buyers who didn't want to deal with costly maintenance. The Zephyr's reliability problems weren't limited to the engine. Other mechanical components, such as the transmission and electrical system, were also prone to issues. Owners frequently reported breakdowns and malfunctions, which hurt the car's reputation. For a vehicle that was supposed to represent luxury and refinement, these frequent mechanical problems were a significant drawback. Buyers who were willing to pay a premium for a luxury car expected reliability and durability, and the Zephyr's failure to deliver on these fronts made it a tough sell. Another challenge for the Zephyr was its price. While it was less expensive than other luxury cars of the time, it was still quite costly compared to more mainstream vehicles. The car's high price tag limited its appeal to a relatively small group of affluent buyers, many of whom were already loyal to established luxury brands. In a time when economic conditions were still recovering from the Great Depression, many buyers were hesitant to spend extra on a vehicle that was not only expensive, but also prone to mechanical problems. This combination of high cost and poor reliability made the Zephyr a less attractive option in a competitive market. The timing of the Zephyr's release also played a role in its struggles. The 1940 model came out just before the US entered World War II, a period when the automotive industry would soon shift its focus to war production. As a result, car sales in general slowed down, and many potential buyers opted to wait until after the war to make major purchases like a new vehicle. The Zephyr, which was already facing challenges, was further impacted by this change in the market. By the time the war ended and production resumed, Lincoln had moved on to newer models, leaving the Zephyr as a short-lived chapter in the company's history. While the Lincoln Zephyr was a noble attempt to break into the luxury car market, its combination of high cost, mechanical problems, and stiff competition kept it from achieving lasting success. Despite its beautiful design and innovative styling, the car's performance didn't live up to the expectations set by its luxurious appearance. The Zephyr remains an interesting footnote in Lincoln's history, remembered for its bold design and ambitious goals, but ultimately it fell short of becoming the iconic luxury vehicle Lincoln had hoped it would be. The 1949 Packard 8 was once part of a storied line of luxury cars that had defined American automotive elegance and prestige for decades. Packard, renowned for its craftsmanship, had long been a symbol of luxury and engineering excellence, catering to the upper echelon of society. However, by the late 1940s, the brand's reluctance to embrace modernization began to tarnish its reputation. and the 1949 Packard 8 stands as a prime example of the company's struggle to adapt to a rapidly changing market. At first glance, the 1949 Packard 8 retained much of the stately, classic styling that had made the brand famous. Its elongated body, graceful curves, and imposing front grille harkened back to the pre-war golden age of luxury automobiles. This design approach, however, was both a strength and a weakness. While the Packard 8 still exuded a certain old-world charm and sophistication, it began to feel outdated as competitors like Cadillac and Lincoln embraced modern, post-war styling trends. The Packard's look, which had once symbolized refinement, now seemed increasingly old-fashioned in a world that was craving something fresh and forward-looking. One of the Packard 8's most significant shortcomings was its lack of modern technological features. As the 1950s approached, American automakers were innovating at a rapid pace. Power steering, automatic transmissions, and other mechanical advancements were quickly becoming standard in luxury cars. But Packard clung to older technologies. While Cadillac was introducing its high-dramatic automatic transmission and Buick was pushing innovations like power windows and power brakes, Packard remained rooted in the past, continuing to rely on manual transmissions and a more traditional approach to engineering. The absence of an automatic transmission in particular was a major oversight. By 1949, many American buyers, especially in the luxury segment, were looking for convenience and ease of use, and automatic transmissions were becoming a must-have feature. Packard's failure to include this in the 8 put it at a significant disadvantage. Buyers who might have otherwise been attracted to Packard's reputation for quality were instead drawn to Cadillac and other brands that offered more modern driving experiences. The Packard 8's outdated technology made it feel out of step with the rapidly evolving industry, leading potential customers to view it as a relic of a bygone era rather than a forward-thinking luxury vehicle. In addition to its lack of modern features, the Packard 8 also suffered from performance issues. While its straight-8 engine was reliable and smooth, it didn't offer the same level of power or refinement as the new V8 engines that were starting to become popular in American luxury cars. The Packard's engine, while adequate for leisurely cruising, didn't deliver the kind of spirited performance that younger, more affluent buyers were beginning to expect from a luxury car. This further contributed to the perception that Packard was falling behind the competition. Compounding these issues was Packard's struggle with branding and market positioning. In the post-war era, American consumers were looking for bold, exciting products that reflected the country's newfound optimism and prosperity. Cadillac, in particular, had mastered the art of marketing itself as the epitome of modern luxury, with sleek designs and cutting-edge technology that appealed to the tastes of the day. Packard, on the other hand, seemed content to rest on its laurels, relying on its pre-war reputation rather than actively pursuing innovation and change. As a result, the brand's image began to stagnate, and its cars, including the 1949 Packard 8, were increasingly viewed as vehicles for an older generation. Packard's reluctance to adapt was also evident in its design choices. While competitors were experimenting with new styling cues, such as tail fins, wraparound windshields, and lower, wider profiles, Packard remained conservative. The 1949 Packard 8 still had the upright, stately proportions of a pre-war luxury car, which made it appear somewhat out of place alongside the more daring designs of its competitors. This conservative approach might have appealed to some of Packard's longtime customers, but it failed to attract the younger, wealthier buyers that the brand needed to sustain its business in the rapidly changing post-war market. Ultimately, the 1949 Packard 8 symbolizes the challenges faced by a company that was unable or unwilling to fully embrace the future. While it remained a well-built and comfortable car, its failure to incorporate modern technologies and design elements left it feeling outdated. In an era when innovation was key to success, Packard's reliance on its past achievements became a liability rather than an asset. The brand's inability to modernize with features like automatic transmissions,